Chapter 409, Encounter 1. Grudges are truly frightening. Did the anger towards that person make even a mere possessed body reach such a realm? Spirit no Ryu Sowol, the originator of the moon vein. At these words, Mok Jaeongun's eyes sharpened. He had thought that the society leader, being from the Heaven Vein clan, might know something, but he didn't expect Chong Ryong's real name to be mentioned from his mouth. As if reading Mok Jaeongun's thoughts, the society leader spoke in a solemn voice. Did you think I wouldn't know? From the beginning, that secret manual couldn't be touched or learned due to the overwhelmingly strong grudge. The moment I knew you had mastered it, I realized you were inside that body. Secret manual. It was the medium made from the heart that had sealed Chong Ryong's vengeful spirit. The fact that he knew this much about it meant that the current society leader had likely inherited all these secrets from his predecessors. Disciple. Kill him. Chong Ryong's voice, filled with anger, boiled. Having waited only for this moment, she seemed unable to contain her anger any longer. Seeing her reaction, Mok Jaeongun called out to her through voice transmission. Chong Ryong. Don't even dream of trying to stop me. Don't you understand after hearing what these damn clan members are saying? If you don't do it, I'll manifest myself directly and tear this descendant of that bastard limb from limb. I have no intention of stopping you. But please wait a moment. What are you telling me to wait for? Right now. I told you. What? If we're going to do it, we should do it properly. He had declared war in front of all the Heaven and Earth Society members, saying he would make this enormous organization disappear. And in front of all of them, he had shown overwhelming power and dyed the plaza of the main building Heavenly Cherishing Hall, which could be called the symbol of the Heaven and Earth Society, in pandemonium and blood. Seeing this, she had felt immense joy after 100 years. Finally, the moment she had waited for so long had arrived. Now with the bloodline of the Heaven Vein, the descendant of Bai Yonghan who could be called the pinnacle and end of this revenge, right before her eyes, what was he trying to do here? Recognizing her existence means he knows what his predecessors did. Of course, he was mistaken in thinking she had possessed this disciple, but in the end she and the disciple were indeed together. So this wasn't particularly important. What more are you trying to do here? It will all be over if we just kill this guy. It would be good if that alone would resolve your grudge, Chong Ryong, but it doesn't seem to be the case. Surely there are things that bother you as well? At Mok Jaeongun's words, Chong Ryong fell silent. Things that bother her. Yes. Besides the grudge, there are certainly questions. From why she had been sealed in the secret manual made from her heart for nearly 100 years. To how she had been trapped, who did this and why, she was curious about everything. But the ancestor of this guy who she truly wanted to vent her grudge on must have died long ago, so would anything change by hearing something from his descendant? Wouldn't it rather make her more frustrated by the fact that she couldn't directly vent her grudge on him? Chong Ryong was rather afraid of that. Disciple. Just as she was about to say something, the society leader exhaled a strange sigh and opened his mouth. No matter how deep your grudge, you shouldn't have acted recklessly and revealed yourself like this, Ryu Sowol. What do you mean by that? Mok Jaeongun asked without any denial as if he were Chong Ryong himself. At this question, the society leader uttered words that were difficult to understand. We thought it would get better if we made it as distant as possible or cut off the obsession, since no method could burn or tear it. But thanks to your grudge, no less intense than that person's madness, it was all in vain. No, was it this one's foolishness for not calculating that? Swish. Mok Jaeongun aimed his invisible sword at the society leader's chin. If he thrusts now, it will be fatal. You're speaking in a way that's hard to understand. That person's madness? Who do you mean by that person? Are you talking about your dead ancestor? Dead ancestor? Do you really think so? Ryu Sowol. What? At Mok Jaeongun's retort, the society leader snorted as if exasperated and said, Are you pretending not to know? Or have you forgotten? Whatever the case, my plans have already gone awry. Trying to pull that person out of the quagmire, trying to return the society to its original state. Flinch. It was before his words could finish. Mok Jaeongun raised one eyebrow and looked down at the plaza. This was because sinister energies were rising faintly from various places all around. The society leader let out another sigh and said in a meaningful voice, In the end you end up drawing them in. Wooduk. At that moment, some of the society members where the sinister energies were spreading suddenly clutched one of their eyes and writhed in pain. Key up. What is this? Unlike their painful writhing, their bodies gradually showed movements different from their own will. It looked as if they were losing control over their own bodies. Just a little while ago, the atmosphere in the plaza was extremely divided. From the moment the society leader's arm was cut off, the forces supporting Mok Jiongun couldn't hide their joy, cheering loudly, while the forces under young master Na Yolriang rapidly sank into depression. It was the worst possible situation, with nearly half having already submitted and countless lives lost to the sword-riding ejected sword energies, tilting the balance of power. Damn it. Even Na Yolriang, who was caught up in extreme jealousy and anger towards someone for the first time, seemed to think it was already difficult to turn the tide, his lone left pupil gradually filling with resignation. Murmur, murmur. An arm lying on the ground. The expressions of all those who had stepped back in a circle were beyond shock, even dazed. Who could have imagined such a thing? This was the same for Na Yolriang. Master was overwhelmed. Even being called such a genius and growing stronger quickly, he had never imagined the reality of surpassing his master. But it happened right before his eyes. Because of this, morale had already reached a point where it couldn't be revived. If the society leader, one of the seven heavens called the peak of the current martial arts world, couldn't handle him, no one could stop that monster. Even if he tried to join forces with others. Clench. It would just be a meaningless death. A situation where no outcome could be expected brought a suffocating sense of frustration. Na Yolriang's pupils moved back and forth. He had always been emotionally dry to the point of being cold-blooded and arrogant and full of confidence, so he had never cared about others' opinions in his life. But this time was different. If he had simply been defeated, he would have accepted it as just being weak himself. But in a fight where the fate of countless people hung on his shoulders, showing nothing but helplessness without being able to do anything, he was seized by a strong sense of shame he had never experienced before. To think you're only this capable, yet you claim you'll lead us. It's laughable that you aimed for the society leader position. To think we bet our lives trusting such a guy. It was truly strange. Usually no one dared to look at him like this. But their gazes were utterly cold. Although they couldn't say it out loud, their eyes clearly seemed to blame and criticize him. Little rats. He wanted to kill them all. But he knew why they resented him, and he held back, thinking it would only make him look ugly if he got angry here. But his feelings were getting more and more mixed up. Since everything had gone to hell anyway, should he just vent his feelings and end it? If he just tore and ripped apart everything he saw, maybe he'd feel a little better. Clench. Young master. At that moment, Mo Yak grabbed both cheeks of Na Yolriang, who was about to fall into a state of madness from shame and anger. Instinctively realizing that he was about to break down, she felt she had to hold on to his sanity somehow. Young master, come to your senses. You've never been shaken by such things before. Since when did you start caring about others' eyes? At her words, Na Yolriang opened his mouth in a depressed voice. It's all over already. Mo Yak. At those words, Mo Yak barely held back the lump in her throat and shook her head vigorously. This was absolutely not his fault. That was literally like a natural disaster. Even the current peak of the martial arts world couldn't do anything against such a monster. So what could Na Yolriang do, no matter how much of a genius he was called? She gently caressed Na Yolriang's cheeks and said, Young master. This is all because you're pathetically weak. At Mo Yak's completely unexpected words, Na Yolriang's expression distorted. Seeing his face like that, Mo Yak suddenly showed a bewildered expression and her left eyelid trembled. Why did she say such a thing? She had intended to say it was absolutely not his fault. But words completely different from her will came out of her mouth. Mo Yak tried to say that these words were not of her own will. However, because of your incompetence and weakness, you've driven all these people to their deaths. Do you want comfort when you should take your own life and it wouldn't be enough? Words contrary to her will continued to come out of her mouth. At these words from her, Na Yolriang's expression went beyond distortion to become terrifying. What are you? Although he was mentally cornered to the point of almost falling into madness, a shred of reason remained. Even if others feared him and turned their backs, Mo Yak would never do such a thing. She was a companion who would walk with him even if the end of the road was hell and destruction, never one to let go of his hand. Just as Na Yolriang's lone pupil was about to be dyed with doubt and anger. You absolutely. Puke. At that moment the thumb of Mo Yak's left hand, which had been caressing Na Yolriang's cheek, dug into his empty right eye socket. Cook. He couldn't stop her finger from digging in for a moment due to being off guard, but he was able to grab it belatedly. Na Yolriang grabbed her wrist and tried to remove it. However, not only Mo Yak's arm that had dug in, but even her finger didn't budge. To the bewildered Na Yolriang, Mo Yak opened her mouth with a chilling smile. I've waited quite a while for this moment. Kuu. You'll soon forget that weakness. In Na Yolriang's lone pupil, he saw the bizarre sight of Mo Yak's left pupil splitting into a cross shape, with another pupil rising from within. This is... Ugh. Na Yolriang's head tilted back. Along with this, he felt something strange and chilling gradually filling his empty right eye socket, which had been taken by Mok Jiangun. Then Na Yolriang felt his mind becoming hazy. He was clearly looking ahead, but everything became blurry and his consciousness gradually became muddled. Eventually, Na Yolriang's empty eye socket was suddenly filled, and a golden pupil like the one Mok Jiangun had taken appeared. It didn't end there. Puke. Mo Yak forcibly pulled out her own eyeball that had split into a cross and protruded, without any hesitation. It should have been painful, but Mo Yak was rather smiling eerily. Eventually, Mo Yak brought her extracted eyeball to Na Yolriang's forehead and, Shu are you ruck. The eyeball, as if alive, spewed out blood vessels which dug into the flesh of his forehead. As the blood vessels that had dug in wriggled and moved, the forehead area split and a space opened. Then the eyeball Mo Yak was holding popped into that space. With this, Mo Yak lost consciousness and collapsed to the ground like a puppet with its strings cut. Na Yolriang, who now had 3 eyes including the one embedded in his forehead, muttered to the fallen Mo Yak. It was worth preparing for this possibility. Then he raised his head. Na Yolriang's 3 eyes were precisely focused on one figure floating in the air. It was Mok Jiangun. Na Yolriang's lips curled up ominously as he looked at Mok Jiangun. So you were inside? Na Yolriang's 3 pupils sparkled as if filled with ecstasy. Chapter 410, Encounter, 2. Young Master Na Yolriang's lips curled up ominously as he looked at Mok Jiangun. So you were inside? Na Yolriang, who had the eyeball from Mo Yak's left eye implanted in his forehead, had an atmosphere quite different from before. Unlike his usual self, who showed only arrogance and bluntness due to being unfamiliar with emotions, he now exuded a certain ease. He put one hand behind his back and raised the other. Then, chuk, lim, bang, gi. He formed abbreviated hand seals and snapped his fingers. It was at that moment when he snapped his fingers. Go. As spell power spread in all directions, demonic powers that had been trapped here and there began to be released. The released demonic powers. Quaduk, key up. And my eyes suddenly. As society members here and there suddenly clutched their left or right eyes and writhed in pain, those around them couldn't hide their bewilderment. This wasn't just happening to Na Yolriang's side, but also among some of the society members who had come under Mok Jiangun. As those around checked on the suffering society members, asking if they were all right. Hey, why are you? Hook. What is this? Your eye. They couldn't hide their shock at seeing their eyes. The eyes of those who had been clutching them in pain split into a cross shape, revealing a bizarre eye that had been hidden inside. The sight was so bizarre it was almost disgusting. But the surprises didn't end there. Puke. Quaduk. Kek. What is this? Those who had been clutching their eyes in pain suddenly attacked those nearby. The society members who were off guard seeing their comrades suffering, couldn't help but fall victim to these sudden attacks. This wasn't just happening among ordinary society members, but also mixed in with some at the level of branch heads and grand branch heads. Kihyuk. Oh branch head. Kuhyu. The time has finally come. Ku. Grand branch head Jiayun. Why are you doing this? Yuful. Do you still see me as grand branch head Jiayun? With screams erupting from all directions and incidents occurring here and there, even the leaders and executives of each faction were at a loss for how to deal with this situation for a moment. What on earth is happening right now? The society leader's pupils trembled as he looked down at the plaza below. Like the elder council, he had somewhat guessed that there would be hidden individuals. But even he hadn't predicted this. It was difficult to count the exact number as they were scattered here and there, but at a glance, it seemed that nearly 20% of the society members had been unknowingly infiltrated. To think they had hidden so many minions. Were they preparing for this situation? You've worked hard, my child. At that moment, a voice echoed in the society leader's ear. The moment he heard that voice, the society leader's gaze immediately turned somewhere. It was towards his chief disciple Na Yulriang. The moment he saw him, the society leader's expression hardened terribly. So it's come to this. Even though he had innate martial talent surpassing his own, since he wasn't of the Heaven Vein bloodline, he thought it would be enough to just keep him away from the society leader position. But when did he plant an eye so close? Did he read several moves ahead of even himself? I thought the grand plan might be disrupted by variables, but you're performing your filial duty so admirably. The society leader gritted his teeth at the voice he heard. Yuduk. He's indeed excited. Probably because of this being. The society leader's gaze turned to Mok Jiongun. He had never left that place, so revealing himself like this must be to absolutely not miss this moment. Clench. Even if things have gone awry, I can't let it go as he wishes. If that happens, everything will truly go according to its will. The society leader clenched his left fist and opened his mouth, looking at Mok Jiongun. Ryu Sowol. I don't know if you'll believe this one, but how about joining hands for a moment? At this proposal, Mok Jiongun, who had been looking down at the plaza below, raised his head and answered. Join hands. This one's thoughts differ from that person's. To set everything right. Kek. It was then. The society leader who had been speaking suddenly clutched his chest. Then the blood vessels in the exposed parts of his skin bulged out black and turned blue, changing to look almost like he had fallen into chi deviation. The society leader looked at young master Na Yulriang with bloodshot eyes. He was smiling at him. All. I thought. I had removed. Everything. Was there still a remaining restriction? Realizing this, the society leader's eyes filled with anger. He had prepared so much to overturn everything while restraining himself, but it all turned out to still be playing in the palm of his hand. It was at that moment. Chuk, 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 chuk. Mok Jiongun formed abbreviated hand seals with his left hand. Bang, tu, jin. They were the hand seals of the 9-character revival technique. Instantly, an immense spell power filled the area around the society leader. Gugu. Then, Priya. 4 pillars appeared around him. Originally, people without spell power wouldn't be able to see this, but the society leader could see these pillars. This was created by Mok Jiongun using spell power and techniques. Swish. Mok Jiongun put his sword-holding fingers to his lips and muttered softly. 4 peaks linking technique. Chua. At that moment, the 4 pillars connected, creating a massive surface. As a result, the society leader became trapped in a space created by spell power. But when this happened, the blood vessels that had been bulging out of his skin began to subside little by little. This is. The society leader's eyes glinted. He had heard from Vice Society leader Mong Socheon that the one who inherited the Moon Vein sword techniques had talent in sorcery and had become a disciple of sorcerer Zhou Yuigong, who was under the head of the Primal Killing Pavilion. Although he had emphasized sorcery because there were things to prepare for his plans, he hadn't paid much attention to it, thinking how much could he have learned given that its system was perhaps even more complex than martial arts. But looking at it now, it seemed to be at a level beyond that. However, even if possessed, can a vengeful spirit handle spells, which could be considered a power opposite to it in this way? It was at that moment of puzzlement. Swish. Mok Jiongun extended his hand. At that instant, the society leader who had just escaped the pain of the restriction while trapped in the 4-peak linking formation, was pushed back and flew into the main building, breaking through a window. Kwang. After sending the society leader flying like that, Mok Jiongun then looked at young master Na Yulriang. An incomparable demonic power and strange energy, far beyond that of others who had another eye appear within their eyes, was emanating from him. He looked almost like a different person. No, had he become a different person? That eye. An eye had sprouted on his forehead. After staring at this for a while, Mok Jaeongun then, Kung, landed right in front of Na Yolryang from midair. As Mok Jaeongun landed, the ground cracked and shockwaves spread out, causing those nearby to be thrown back. You huck. What energy. Pa 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 pang. Due to the shockwaves and aftermath, soon only Mok Jaeongun and Na Yolryang remained within that radius. Na Yolryang smiled and opened his mouth. I didn't expect sorcery to be possible with that body. Not bad. You're indeed not Na Yolryang. Na Yolryang? Of course not. That child is sleeping peacefully in here. Na Yolryang patted his chest. Then he looked in the direction where the society leader had been sent flying and said, Thanks to that foolish boy, I thought the grand plan might get a little tangled, but fortunately, everything is returning to its place. Grand plan. Yes. I've been drawing a big picture. There was a variable like you, but that's a part one can overcome easily enough. With those words, Na Yolryang extended his hand towards Mok Jaeongun. And then he said with a smile, That guy made some initial moves, but I've prepared a lot for you. Come with me. So Wool. No sooner had those words ended. Kejik. The wooden doll in Mok Jaeongun's bosom cracked. This was because it couldn't withstand the spirit power of Chong Ryong inside. Chong Ryong, trying to forcibly break out of it, spoke to Mok Jaeongun in a voice filled with ecstasy and anger. Disciple. It's him. It must be him. In Chong Ryong's view, she saw a different appearance, not Na Yolryang. He was the being she hated so much, the one who had ripped out her heart and made her face death. It was Bai Yonghwan of the Heaven Vein. However, Mok Jaeongun was looking with a different perspective from Chong Ryong. That is, so you're Mok gone. At those words, Na Yolryang's smiling expression froze coldly and became strange. Then he tilted his head slightly and opened his mouth with narrowed eyes. I didn't expect those words to come from your mouth. Disciple, what are you saying now? Although he has an eye on his forehead, he's clearly Chong Ryong. This guy is Mok gone. The Mok gone. He is. Chong Ryong's words trailed off. Her mind became complicated. The shell was clearly young Master Na Yolryang, but what was inside was undoubtedly him. But he's Mok gone? The Mok gone she had learned about while being with Mok Jaeongun, that is, the being combining Mok, and Mountain, Gone, Three Eyes, Samon, was the leader of the secret society. What on earth is going on here? As she was puzzling over this, Na Yolryang raised one eyebrow and said, Are you really so Wool? At his question, the corners of Mok Jaeongun's mouth slowly raised. Schwa. Flinch. It looked like he was smiling, but as a chilling and enormous killing intent rose from within that smile, Na Yolryang's eyes immediately sharpened. No matter how she had become a vengeful spirit, the Ryu Sowul he knew would never make such a face. This was something only one who had committed slaughter, pandemonium, blood and pain. All of those things could possess. Chapter 411. Encounter 3. Mok Jaeongun's lips curled upwards. At a glance, his smile seemed bright, but it was so full of malice that it sent chills down the spine of anyone who saw it. This was something only one who had committed slaughter, pandemonium, blood and pain. All of those things could possess. Seeing this, Na Yolryang was quickly seized by doubt. If the being inside was a vengeful spirit, he could understand such intense negative emotions, but something felt off. Has it risen in rank as a vengeful spirit? Even if it had been sealed and its resentment had deepened, by now it should have reached the rank of blue spirit. Certainly, at the rank of blue spirit, it could give a sense of pressure or caution. But what is this sensation? Should I call it alien? Even if 100 years had deepened its resentment, could the Ryu Sowul he knew really make such a face? However, no matter what, it couldn't be enough to threaten even his own senses. Swish. It was before he could say anything. Mok Jaeongun's demonic sword, Evil Commandment Sword, which he had drawn without notice, came swinging to behead Na Yolryang. However, Na Yolryang avoided the sword by lightly tilting his head back, and Mok Jaeongun changed direction mid-swing to aim for his neck again. Then, swish. Pang. Mok Jaeongun's sword bent smoothly and was deflected. Tweru. Mok Jaeongun's body was pushed back about 3 steps. It seemed like he would be pushed back further, but his feet stopped as if planted in the ground midway, and the ground cracked around his feet. Gyojiojijiak. Sharp sword energy flowed out from the cracked ground. To channel energy to your Yangchen point in that instant. Not bad. At Na Yulriang's praise, Mok Jiangun opened his mouth with narrowed eyes. The ritual of repulsion. Mok Jiangun immediately recognized that this strange technique that deflected his sword energy was the ritual of repulsion, one of the 8 thought-shattering techniques. Is this the ritual of repulsion? Yes. It was certain. The 8 thought-shattering techniques were an incredibly strange ultimate skill that could be unleashed without any precursors. Even Chong Ryong couldn't help but be surprised at this. Both she and Mok Jiangun knew the ritual of repulsion as a method of channeling energy away in an instant before it could even touch. She knew that the profundity of the 8 thought-shattering techniques deepened the more one practiced them, but to think it had reached even this level. Disciple. If he has mastered the ritual of repulsion, he could be the one who took Chong Ryong's heart. After the day of the great calamity, only 3 people in the world had learned the 8 thought-shattering techniques. Chong Ryong, Mok Jiangun, and Bai Yonghan of the Heaven Vein. At that moment Na Yulriang smiled faintly and opened his mouth. That's a relief. I was worried for a moment, but it seems that's not the case. Yes, it's the ritual of repulsion. Only you and I in this world can recognize this. So he did learn it. Yes. Of course. There's no way he wouldn't have learned it. A voice boiling with anger along with trembling. As he became more and more certain that he was Bai Yonghan, Chong Ryong tried to break the wooden doll and come out right away. Yo. Chong Ryong. Wait. If he's really Mok Gon and that Bai Yonghan, what is there to hesitate about? He is the enemy of you in this one. Chong Ryong could no longer hold back. At her sky-piercing resentment and killing intent, Mok Jiangun finally nodded. He still didn't know how this guy could be both Three Eyes, the leader of the secret society, and Bai Yonghan, Chong Ryong's enemy, but if he was truly the source of all this, there was no reason to hesitate anymore, as she said. Quaduk. The wooden doll shattered. At that moment Na Yulriang, who had been smiling and about to step forward, paused. Gugu. He sensed the immense spirit power that engulfed the surroundings the moment the seal was broken. Na Yulriang's eye on his forehead glinted strangely. This was because feeling spirit power meant revealing the spirit body as a vengeful spirit. At this, Na Yulriang put his hands behind his back and said leisurely, "No matter how high your rank, revealing your spirit body is a futile act. I don't know how you trained that body to such a degree, but maintaining that state." Shua. It was at that moment. Suddenly the sky turned blood red. At this strange phenomenon, everyone in the plaza looked up. This was the same even for the strange people with eyes protruding from their eyes. Murmur. Look over there. The sky is turning red. What is this? It wasn't just the sky that was turning red. Blood suddenly began to spring up like fountains from the plaza floor. Even if they rubbed their eyes thinking they were seeing things, the blood filling the floor was still there, and they could even smell the unique stench of blood. The blood that filled the floor then shot up into the sky, forming a reverse rain. Everyone was dumbfounded by this bizarre phenomenon that made them doubt their eyes, but not Na Yulriang. Ghost intent domain. To be able to unfold it even when the sun is at its zenith. Your resentment seems to be deeper than this one expected. This wasn't possible with just the rank of blue spirit. It had to be beyond that. It needed to reach at least the rank of indigo spirit, but seeing that it covered the entire main building plaza. Violet spirit? Na Yulriang's expression became subtle. Violet spirit was a rank that could only be reached with immeasurable spirit power and resentment as a vengeful spirit. Even he, who was well-versed in sorcery to the point of being knowledgeable about alchemy to artificially create high-ranking vengeful spirits, couldn't understand. Soil couldn't have reached the rank of violet spirit in just 100 years. What on earth happened? Even if Bai Yongxian had stolen the secret manual made from her heart that day, he had thought it would eventually return to his side, so he had waited with leisure. But what did he do? It was then. Chua 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 chua. The blood pooled around him turned into sharp thorns and stabbed towards him. Na Yulriang lightly waved his hand at this. The thorns melted away as if oxidizing before they could even touch him. Su. This won't work. Since you've manifested anyway, show your face after a long. Chua. Before his words could finish, The blood on the floor began to rotate around him and then shot up in the form of a whirlwind. The blood in the whirlwind became countless, hundreds, thousands of sword blades trying to grind Na Yolriang's flesh. Chua 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 chua. Why, my goodness. How can blood? The tremendous majesty of the blood whirlwind rising to the sky was so shocking that everyone around retreated as far back as they could. Die. Chongryon was giving her all, raising her resentment and spirit power to the extreme to kill just one person. Since it also contained the moon vein sword techniques, the inside could be seen as an absolute sword formation made of blood. She absolutely did not let her guard down. If he had realized the 8 thought-shattering techniques to the point of deflecting even Mok Jiongun's sword energy, this guy must have become incomparably stronger than the Bai Yonghan she knew in the past. Then she must face him with determination to die. With her current self having reached the domain of violet spirit, she could face even a master of the profound realm, considered the highest. Let's end everything here. Bai Yonghan. If she can kill him, it doesn't matter if her spirit body is destroyed. Even if she faces spirit annihilation here, as long as she can kill this guy. Pa-cha-cha-cha-cha-chong. What is this? In an instant, the blood whirlwind she had created burst due to the tremendous energy being released from inside. This is demonic power. If it wasn't a mistake, it was closer to the demonic power of two-tailed demons rather than internal energy. It was at that moment. Na Yolriang walked out with his hands behind his back, without a single drop of blood on him, and smirked. I told you it's useless. And it seems like you want to play hide and seek, so I'll find you directly. Wyrick. No sooner had those words ended than the eye on Na Yolriang's forehead moved. The pupil scanned the surroundings in an instant. You were inside. With those words, Na Yolriang muttered something and raised one hand to strike down at the blood-filled floor. Pang! Twa! The moment his palms struck down, the blood rose like waves in all directions. Then someone bounced out of the blood and shot upwards. It was Chongryon wearing a crown and holding a long pipe. Found you. Seeing her, Na Yolriang curled his lips and flew his body. He was so fast that his body reached right in front of Chongryon in an instant, but at that very moment, Chong! The sound of swords clashing spread in all directions, and the rain of blood that had been rising around them scattered with a gust of wind, creating a vacuum in the space between. You. Na Yolriang's eyes widened as he crossed swords. This was because the one who blocked him was an unexpected figure. It was Mok Jiongun. How can you? Hadn't he ended the possession and manifested? But how is he moving? Behind Mok Jiongun, who was blocking him, Ryu Sowul was clearly visible. This. What on earth? Of course, there are cases where one regains consciousness immediately after being freed from possession. But if a body has been dominated for a long time, it's difficult for the soul to normalize at once. Moreover, a vengeful spirit of the rank of Violet Spirit, which could be called the peak as a vengeful spirit, had possessed him. No matter how strong that body is. At that moment, the eye on Na Yolriang's forehead trembled severely. That I could see clearly. The red thread connecting Mok Jiongun and Chongryon. That is, affinity. In an instant, Na Yolriang's mind became complicated. He had been puzzled by how strong the martial prowess of the possessed body was, but since there were cases where one could become strong even in a possessed state, he had thought this was such a case. But affinity? Isn't this something that should only occur when dominating low-ranking two-tailed demons as spirit servants? A vengeful spirit is the soul of a human, a being born with all the possibilities of the myriad things, and because its negativity is so strong in one direction, it's different from two-tailed demons, so it's not suitable as a spirit servant and doesn't form connections. But how is that connected? Impossible. This can't be. As he was puzzling over this, Mok Jiongun's left hand holding the demonic sword plundering killing sword flew towards his neck. Twack. Seeing this, Na Yolriang raised his hand. Boom. He tried to deflect the sword energy again with the ritual of repulsion. But at that moment, Mok Jiongun's sword ignored the ritual of repulsion. This is. A strong adhesive force was felt from the hand connected to the sword. The ritual of binding? As the two opposing forces conflicted, they ended up canceling each other out. At this, Chong! Na Yolriang applied more force to the clashing sword, pushing it away and flying his body backwards. As Mok Jiongun was about to fly his body, not wanting to let him escape. Swish. Get lost. Na Yelriang extended his finger towards Mok Jiongun. Then, pop away. At that moment the surrounding space seemed to compress, converging to a single point, and Mok Jiongun's body was sucked into the center. The void suppression. 1. This was another technique of the 8 thought-shattering techniques. It was a technique that instantly pressed about 4 jang, about 12 meters, of space in any desired direction, and was one of the techniques that consumed the most mental and energy power among the 8 thought-shattering techniques. Dribble. Blood tears flowed from Na Yelriang's 3 pupils. It's certainly overwhelming for this new body. However, if caught in this technique, one would be thrown to an unknown place along with the folded space, so it's impossible to know where they would appear. Of course, he thought Mok Jiongun would end up like that too, but Chua are you ruck. At that moment, the unfolding void suppression was sucked into another void suppression that suddenly appeared as if overlapping. Seeing this, Na Yelriang's expression hardened terribly. This was because he saw Chong Ryong extending her finger just like himself. Chong Ryong also looked at her own finger with surprised eyes. How is this? After becoming a vengeful spirit, she had lost all the power she had when she had a physical body. But in the moment she thought Mok Jiongun was in danger, the formula for the 8 thought-shattering techniques came to her mind without her realizing it, and she extended her finger. However, Huick. She felt an enormous amount of spirit power being consumed in an instant. Along with this, the ghost intent domain blood boundary she had been maintaining began to crack and scatter as if breaking apart. PSSSSSSSS. Through the fragments of the breaking blood world, the blood boundary Mok Jiongun and Na Yelriang clashed once again in midair. Chong. Kwang. Pachichichik. As their swords clashed, gusts of wind and blue streaks like lightning spread out in all directions like roots. Clashing in that state, Na Yelriang shouted with bloodshot eyes. What on earth is your true identity? To his question, Mok Jiongun answered in a low voice. Jong Mok Jiongun, heavenly demon. It doesn't matter if you forget all of that. What? I am the one who will kill you. Cha-cha-cha-cha-cha-cha-cha-cha-cha. No sooner had those words ended, dozens of swords rose around them as they crossed swords, aiming their tips. Chapter 412, Encounter 4. The main plaza of the Heaven and Earth Society, which had faced new chaos due to the unexpected appearance of third-party enemies with eyes within their eyes, temporarily entered a lull as it was dyed red with blood everywhere. Amidst this, a sudden tremendous battle broke out. Due to this clash between beings with overwhelming power, everyone temporarily stopped fighting and inevitably had their attention drawn to it. What on earth is that? How can blood form a whirlwind? Everyone couldn't hide their surprise at the sudden strange phenomena occurring one after another within the blood boundary. It was no different for the executives of the Heaven and Earth Society. What on earth was happening? Although it was difficult to guess, one thing was certain. Those 2 men were at the center of this massive battle. Cha-cha-cha-cha-cha-cha-cha-cha-cha. Dozens of swords rose around Mok Jiongun and Na Yelriang as they crossed swords, aiming their tips at them. Sword riding technique? To handle so many sword riding technique swords, even if one learned the Wudong Sect's techniques, one of the cores of the 9 sects, or mastered the strange dual mind technique of the extinct Chongyang sect that divides the mind in 2, controlling all of these would be impossible. Na Yelriang slightly squinted his left eye. Along with this, countless visions flashed through his mind in an instant. They were fragments of memories. Although he had just taken over the body and gained control over it, he hadn't accepted things like the body's memories or habits. But the moment he accepted some of the memories, heavenly demon? Jong Mok Jiongun, heavenly demon. It doesn't matter if you forget all of that. This guy called himself the heavenly demon. Does that mean this guy is the one who received the title of one of the 7 heavens? His reputation was so high that it had even reached his ears. No, it couldn't help but reach them. He destroyed the Shaolin's 108 Arhat formation in one step and sealed off the Tang family of Sichuan. If nothing else, isn't the Tang family of Sichuan protected by that monstrous clan generation after generation? But when he heard that someone had appeared who single-handedly subjugated the Tang family of Sichuan, even he couldn't help but be surprised. Here he had put forward 2 hypotheses. Either the blood of that clan had thinned compared to the past, making them much weaker than before, or that being called the heavenly demon was an unimaginable monster. However, he had thought the former was more likely, but if this guy is the heavenly demon, this strength is certainly... In Na Yelriang's memory, Mok Jiongun's starting point was the transcendent realm. But in such a short time he became a new heaven, standing shoulder to shoulder with the six heavens, the current peak of the martial arts world. It was an incredible rate of progress, hard to believe for a human. Could it be? It was at that moment. Boom. Black sword energy formed on the sword riding technique swords surrounding them. The moment he felt the vicious and destructive energy contained in the black sword energy, which was different from ordinary sword energy, the pupil of the eye embedded in Na Yelriang's forehead turned pure white. It was a strange change. Is it him? It's not certain. What do you mean? The energy is different, though at a glance it resembles humans in being mean and vicious. Although I've completely lost my power I once ruled. But the being before us is a complete human. What? A complete human? Yes. Certain. My eyes can find their core. However, this one has no core. And while its energy is quite similar to theirs, its nature itself is completely different. The voice echoing in his mind denied Na Yelriang's conjecture. That can't be. How could a mere human, no matter how exceptional their martial talent, become this strong so quickly? As he was struggling to understand, the voice echoed in his mind. More importantly, we should hurry, this body still has difficulty enduring us. Flutter. Na Yelriang glanced at his faintly trembling fingers. Can't it withstand even this level of vessel now? If that guy hadn't stubbornly insisted on the truth or whatever, there would have been no need to go around like this, but now it's just become a headache. Clench. Na Yelriang's pupils, clenching his fist, turned towards Mok Jiongun. If he's certainly human, then what on earth is this guy's identity? How did he make Ryu Sowul his spirit servant? Is this a new variable created by fate, karma, heaven, or whatever to prevent her and himself from connecting again? Yuduk. If that's the case, it can never be forgiven. Even if everything stands in his way, he will seize it this time, even if he has to destroy everything. After organizing everything in his mind in an instant, Na Yelriang opened his mouth. Fine. As you said, I don't care what your identity is. You're just a variable anyway. I'll make you beg to cut off Sowul's affinity with you and kill. Twack. It was before those words could finish. As Mok Jiongun's left hand holding the demonic sword plundering killing sword tried to pierce his brow, Na Yelriang tilted his head to the side to avoid it, then grabbed the blade of plundering killing sword with 2 fingers. Chuck. Did you think I would create distance if you thrust? If you don't separate at close range, all these many sword-riding ejected sword energies are ultimately meaningless. Na Yelriang sneered. As long as they were crossing swords, Mok Jiongun absolutely couldn't fire the sword-riding ejected sword energies. This was because he was too close and could put himself in danger. It was just a waste of energy. This was inefficient. Chwa 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 chwack. At that moment, Na Yelriang's eyes widened. This was because the sword energies loaded on dozens of sword hilts around them all rushed towards them at once. Does this guy not care about injuring himself? Huh. Seems he's really far from being related to that being he remembered. There's a strong feeling of something raw and unrefined. Feels vicious and even mad. Swish. Na Yelriang immediately unfolded the ritual of repulsion to try and deflect the dozens of sword-riding ejected sword energies flying towards him. However, boom. Mok Jiongun simultaneously unfolded the ritual of binding, cancelling it out. Annoying bastard. If you want to go into such a chaotic melee, fine, I'll oblige. Let's do this. Chong. Na Yelriang struck away Mok Jiongun's sword that was crossing with his and unfolded a peerless sword technique. It was none other than the Heaven Vein sword technique, but the trajectory of the sword was far more complex and profound than what the society leader displayed. Mok Jiongun faced this sword technique of his with the second form of the demonic sword technique. Cha-cha-cha-cha-cha-cha-cha-chong. As their sword techniques clashed fiercely, blue sparks flew around them. Meanwhile, dozens of black streaks of sword-riding ejected sword energies flew towards them. Cha-cha-cha-cha-cha-cha-chong. Pa-pa-pa-pa-pa-pang. An amazing sight unfolded here. While fiercely clashing sword techniques, Mok Jiongun struck down the sword-riding ejected sword energies flying towards him with the demonic sword plundering killing sword in his other hand, changing their trajectory to instead fly towards Na Yelriang. The same was true for Na Yelriang. As he extended his left hand and gently unfolded a palm technique, the trajectory of the ejected sword energies changed and rushed towards Mok Jaehyun. Pa-cha-cha-cha-cha-cha-chong. The sword-riding ejected sword energies, whose trajectories they had twisted towards each other, clashed and created another cancelling aftermath. Grey powder scattered and covered their surroundings. The masters under Mok Jaehyun, who had been dealing with the strange people with eyes protruding from their eyes, couldn't help but admire this sight. Is this a feast of ultimate techniques? I've never seen such a high-level battle before. It's a battle between monsters. Everyone couldn't help but feel a thrill at the sight of these two using sword-riding ejected sword energies while clashing peerless sword techniques, and using flower grafting techniques to attack each other. This was truly worthy of being called a battle between peerless masters at the level of great masters. However, there were two things that all those watching couldn't help but find strange. One was that young master Na Yulriang's martial prowess had suddenly skyrocketed as if he had become a different person, and the other was... No. Why isn't he using the invisible sword? Go Chan, possessing the body of Jang Nung-ak, the second disciple of the society leader, wondered. It seemed that if Mok Jaehyun, who had reached the life and death realm, used the invisible sword, he could dominate the situation more, but it looked like he wasn't using his full power. Someone answered his question. Kung. Kuku. It's not that he's not using it but that he can't use it. Why you startled me. It was Jiamzhong, the fallen monk and evil-suppressing fist master. Startled by the sudden appearance of Jiamzhong with his fierce expression, Go Chan inwardly sighed in relief. Regardless, Jiamzhong continued what he was saying. His internal energy consumption was great from the previous battles. Come to think of it, Mok Jaehyun had continuously displayed ultimate techniques that consumed a lot of internal energy even before facing the changed young master Na Yulriang. So much so that one might wonder if his internal energy was infinite. But to be able to fight like that without using the invisible sword, it seems his internal energy consumption was really great. How simple-minded. Cuckoo. Jiamzhong opened the cork of a gourd bottle with his blood-soaked hand and gulped down alcohol. Seeing this, Go Chan frowned and said, Wait. Hey. What are you? I get that you're a new subordinate received by the master, but your manner of speech at first meeting... Shut up and this is our chance. What? Even those damn eye freaks are having their attention drawn by the battle between those monsters. We should reorganize our battle lines and strike them now. At these words, Go Chan, who was about to get angry at his rudeness, closed his mouth. Indeed, due to the guys with protruding eyeballs, it had become a chaotic melee where it was hard to tell who was an ally. It was time to reorganize the battle lines. But there was one problem here. It wouldn't be difficult for him to move these people thanks to the body of the second young master Jang Nung-ak, which gave him some influence, but if he tried to align the allies' battle lines, those guys would also hear his shout and try to interfere by following. Should they risk even that? If those guys get mixed in, battle lines won't mean anything. Take this. The fallen monk Jiamzhong took off the ragged cassock he was wearing and handed it over. What am I supposed to do with this? Turn it inside out and you'll see. Turn it inside out? At this, Go Chan turned over the cassock he had received with a dubious expression. Then on the inside there were densely packed red letters engraved. The moment it was revealed. Keek. Kak. The strange people with eyes protruding from their eyes who were nearby frowned and retreated with strange cries. They seemed to be avoiding it. What is this that's making them act like that? Although it's worn out, it's a cassock with the Sutra of True Words for Subduing Demon engraved on it. It's perfect for driving away two-tailed demons or minor ghosts. Cuckoo. Sutra of True Words for Subduing Demon? But this one alone doesn't seem nearly enough. Don't you have more? One is enough. What? Stay still. Heave ho. Whoa. With those words, Jiamzhong lifted Go Chan's legs and put him on his shoulders. For a moment, Go Chan was flustered, wondering what he was doing, but thanks to being lifted by the fairly large Jiamzhong, his field of vision was secured by being elevated. When you see fire, tell them to jump behind you and align the battle lines. Fire. Shut up and hurry. Urged by Jiamzhong, Go Chan immediately shouted, infusing his voice with internal energy. Everyone listen. Those with eyes protruding from their eye sockets are no longer allies. When you see fire, align behind this young master and form battle lines. At Go Chan's shout, everyone nearby looked at him puzzled. What does he mean by aligning behind him and forming battle lines when they see fire? It was at that very moment. Clap. Jiamzhong put his palms together in prayer and began to chant a Buddhist mantra. Then, whoosh. The casa with the Sutra of True Words for Subduing Demon engraved on it that Go Chan was holding began to burn. What? So this is what he meant by fire? But at some point the flames burning the casa began to turn blue. The blue flames were so bright they were close to radiance. Key up. My eyes. Then the strange people with eyes protruding from their eyes covered their eyes as if in pain upon seeing the blue flames. Seeing their reaction, the society members shouted, thinking this was their chance, and flew their bodies. Tao's our chance. Align behind young master Jiang Nunghe. Wah wah. Pa 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 pack. Thanks to the blue flames emitted by the burning casa with the Sutra of True Words for Subduing Demon, which temporarily stopped the movement of the strange people, the society members quickly aligned their battle lines. Cuckoo, how about that? Thanks to this monk. Huh. At that moment, Jiamzhong frowned. Chi. This was because Jiang Nungeke's hands and arms holding the burning casa were burning dark red, and his two pupils were rolled back with a face as if his soul had left his body. Oh, it really had left. Above Jiang Nungeke's head, Go Chan's vengeful spirit was rising with a majestic light as if about to attain Buddhahood. What? You were a wandering ghost. Chapter 413, Battle of Numbers. 1. I should have realized it when I flipped over that damned casa. The strange sense of déjà vu and the nauseating feeling in my gut. I should have recognized these as omens that I was becoming my own poison. I thought nothing major would happen since Mok Jiangun had inscribed protective spells against the diviner's techniques. But, whoosh. The moment the casa inscribed with the Sutra of Subduing Demons burst into flames from the chanting. Kugagagak. It was guard Go Chan who took the full brunt of the sutra's power with both hands. Hiss. Go Chan, who had been holding the burning casa, was flung away from Jiang Nungeke's body, on the verge of attaining Buddhahood by the majestic power of the Sutra of Subduing Demons. For some unknown reason it felt warm. It was as if he was being sucked into some inexplicable place. Was this the moment of finding peace from everything? Right at that moment, someone hastily grabbed hold of his soul. It was none other than the expelled monk, the demon-subduing fist master, Jiamzhong. I thought something was off about you from the start, but you were just a lowly ghost. As always, there's barely anyone normal around that master of yours. Hee hee. Let go. I want to find peace now. Oh ho. Really? Are you trying to attain Buddhahood while you're at it? Buddhahood? Yes, you fool. If you go on like this, attaining Buddhahood means a one-way ticket to the afterlife. In that instant, Go Chan snapped back to his senses. When he was enveloped by the energy of the Sutra of Subduing Demons, he had been overwhelmed by a warm and ecstatic feeling, but all of that had been the process of departing from this world. Ugh. Damn monk. Hold on to me tight. I am holding on. But where does a lowly ghost like you get off calling me a damn monk? You damn monk, this mess happened because of you, didn't it? Well, that may be true, but I still don't appreciate being called a damn monk by a lowly ghost like you. What have you done right? Pat. Amidst their bickering, the executives under Mok Jiangun who were regrouping and leading the society members appeared nearby. They were Huan Yixian, the Shadow Clan Master, Ho Taigang, the Axe-Destroying King, and Bek Saha, the Annihilating Poison King. Huan Yixian, who had come closer, said with a smile. Oh ho ho. Well done, young Master Jiang. Thanks to you, we were able to regroup easily before more casualties occurred. Young Master Jiang. Huan Yixian couldn't hide his bewilderment as he saw Jiang Nungeke's body with arms charred black, eyes rolled back and tongue sticking out. Ahem. At this, the expelled monk Jiamzhong gestured hurriedly for Go Chan to possess the body. Go Chan also tried to quickly enter Jiang Nungeke's body, but Yigajiek. Due to the remaining energy of the Sutra of Subduing Demons in Jiang Nungeke's body, the moment he tried to enter, he felt as if he had been struck by lightning and was flung out again. Once again, as he was about to attain Buddhahood with a majestic light, Jiamzhong hastily grabbed him, licking his lips. Tisk. Seems it won't work. Arg. You damn monk. What are we going to do about this? It was the best body he had managed to obtain after much struggle. He thought he could finally live in luxury as the second-in-command by Mok Jae-un's side, but now it had become a body he could never enter again. There are bodies lying all around, just enter any of them. Are you seriously saying that right now? Go Chan spewed every curse he could think of at Jia Jiamzhong's insensitive words. The bodies lying around were all either critically wounded or cold corpses. While they were squabbling, Ho Taegang, the axe-destroying king, raised his giant axe, his sex-unique weapon, and shouted, "Those in front of us are no longer our allies. Sweep away all those strange beings." Wah! At his cry, the society members under Ho Taegang, who had regrouped, charged towards the strange beings whose eyes were still not fully open due to the aftermath of the Sutra of Subduing Demons, shouting with high morale. Not to be outdone, Baek Saha, the annihilating Poison King, also shouted at the warriors of the Baek family. "Show them the poison chi of the Baek family." Wah! Wah! The Baek family warriors also charged towards the enemies, shouting at the top of their lungs at their leader's call. This is where new history is being written. To uphold my disciples' prestige, I must demonstrate the dignity of the Baek family by achieving greater military exploits than anyone else. Amidst this, Baek Saha, the annihilating Poison King, noticed that the warriors of Corpse Blood Valley were being led by subordinate officers without their leader. Where was Lee Jiom, the Corpse Blood Valley master? What? Lee Jiom had somehow already approached the vicinity where Mok Jae-un and Na Yulriang were fighting. The fight between these monsters, who could be considered the pinnacle of the current martial arts world, had such a great impact that neither allies nor enemies dared to approach. So why did he go there? Could he be trying to help Jae-un? Baek Saha's speculation was wrong. The reason Lee Jiom had rushed there risking danger was for one reason only. For her, whom his family had considered their true lord for generations. Pai Lord. Whoosh. The sparks emitted from Lee Jiom's sword cleared the path ahead, cutting down the strange beings with unstoppable force. The majesty of the flaming sword, energy imbued with fire chi, and Lee Jiom's tremendous momentum were so overwhelming that the strange beings, momentarily intimidated, found it difficult to approach easily. After breaking through the strange beings, Lee Jiom's figure reached the front of Chong Ryong, who had landed on the ground due to the excessive consumption of spirit power while using the void suppression of the 8 thought-shattering techniques. This guy. When Lee Jiom, the grandson of Lee Wamun, the leader of the Lee family who used to follow her, appeared, Chong Ryong's eyes flashed with interest. As it was, she was already struggling to deal with the strange beings rushing at her before she could recover even a little of her depleted spirit power. Whoosh. Twak. Kek. Lee Jiom, wearing the evil spirit mask, instantly bisected a strange being of clan master level that was rushing towards him. He then stood blocking Chong Ryong's front and shouted in a thunderous voice, "Whoever targets my lord will be burned to death by this Lee Jiom's sword." Flinch. Flinch. His aura was comparable to that of Jang Ik-deok, who alone guarded the front of Chongban Bridge against hundreds of cavalry. Perhaps because of this, the strange beings who had been aiming to target the weakened Chong Ryong unknowingly took steps back, shrinking from Lee Jiom's tiger-like valor. Seeing Lee Jiom's back, Chong Ryong was reminded of the young Lee Wamun. "I, Lee Wamun, will guard my lord's back." As even that voice, which had faded over 100 years, came to mind, Chong Ryong's eyes reddened. This Lee family brat. Loyalty preserved across generations. It moved even the heartstrings of her who had become a vengeful spirit. Mok Jae-un, who had been watching their figures from the air in between fighting with Na Yulriang, felt reassured. He had been planning to deal with the strange beings targeting Chong Ryong, whose spirit power was greatly depleted, using the sword energy of overcoming demons, but with Lee Jiom there, it seemed that wouldn't be necessary. No matter how strong you become, you can't do everything alone. You too, mortal, should have people you can trust by your side. They will support your back. He hadn't fully grasped the meaning of those words before, but now he felt he understood. I see. Because his subordinates were each playing their roles, he didn't need to pay attention elsewhere. He could focus solely on the enemy before him, which made things easier. I'll kill you with peace of mind. Cha-cha-ka-chong. He gradually sharpened his sword energy, which had been clashing fiercely in a fierce battle. As the precision of his sword techniques and moves increased, Na Yulriang sneered at Mok Jae-un's momentum and opened his mouth. Your concentration has improved. Is it because of your subordinates that you can now focus entirely on me? I didn't think you were the type to keep anyone close, as you seemed too sharp to approach, but it seems you have quite a following. Though his words sounded like praise, his tone was closer to sarcasm. Of course, Mok Jae-eun paid no attention to this at all. He was using all his concentration to find flaws in the sword techniques the other was displaying. Cha-cha-cha-chang. However, Na Yelriang's, or more accurately the Mok-gon Three Eyes who had possessed that body, had sword skills that could be called the best among all beings he had encountered so far. It was sword skills close to perfection, to the extent that even Oh Cheon-mu, the supreme spiritual sword craftsman who was the master of spiritual sword sanctuary and one of the seven heavens, who prided himself on having reached the pinnacle of swordsmanship, would be considered far inferior. Even if you sharpen your sword energy by increasing your concentration, you can't bridge the gap between you and me in an instant. My sword, built up fiercely through countless moments of despair, no longer loses to anyone. And do you think this is all I've prepared? What? Hell begins now. Do. No sooner had those words ended. At that moment, a large group of about 3,000 in number could be seen rushing at high speed towards the inner castle on the southeast side of the main building. When Mok Jae-eun concentrated his eye power, they appeared as if they were close by. But those are not ordinary humans. With pale faces adorned with talismans and sharp nails, they looked like moving corpses. Having read all sorts of spell books and ancient texts, Mok Jae-eun immediately recognized what they were. Jiangshi. It originated from a spell technique devised by Taoist priests to send the bodies of those who died in war back to their hometowns. It's a spell that makes the dead stand up. When a dead body whose soul has left is forcibly awakened, it becomes like a bird of prey, and if left alone, it develops a habit of targeting living things as yin energy seeps in. That's why Taoist priests controlled them with talisman techniques like that. So that's it. Mok Jae-eun had read all the books and records that the primal killing pavilion master possessed. Therefore he knew that what he was doing in Corpse Blood Valley was not just about the loneliness of vengeful spirits. Among the later generation disciples and young talents who entered Corpse Blood Valley, countless had died without passing through the gate. The diviners of Primal Killing Pavilion had been constantly collecting the relatively intact bodies among those corpses. These Jiangshi were what they had created from those collected bodies. For ordinary people or righteous sects, this would be something to scoff at or be shocked and criticized as a deed straying from the right path, but Mok Jae-eun's thinking was far from ordinary. He thought it was quite rational to use dead talents like this, and had planned to utilize this after taking over Primal Killing Pavilion. But I've been beaten to it. It was a shame, as he had intended to use them. Or perhaps Three Eyes had prepared this for a long time through Primal Killing Pavilion, a group of diviners for a moment like this, so that he could swallow up the Heaven and Earth Society into his hand at any time. The society members who were keeping watch and observing the battle situation from the top of the pavilion and high ground seemed to have spotted this, as they shouted in surprise. More unknown strange beings are rushing in from the southeast direction. There are too many enemies. At their cries, one of the executives leading the society members under Mok Jae-eun shouted a question. How many? It looks to be easily 2,000 or 3,000. This is. At those words, the executives' faces darkened. They had just managed to regroup and fight after escaping the chaotic situation, and they were still able to maintain high morale because they had the upper hand both in numbers and in the number of experts. But now, if enemies rush in from the southeast, they would be trapped between the enemies. However, this wasn't the end. Bang. Chwa-chwa-chwack. Kek. Quack. Suddenly, a being appeared in the midst of the society members with lightning speed from somewhere and began a massacre, attacking them relentlessly. This being was so strong that no one could properly face it, and because of this, numerous society members lost their lives as their bodies were torn apart and burst. Mok Jae-eun, being in a high position in the air, could see the appearance of this being, a woman. The being was a peerlessly beautiful woman with seductive looks, her hair half white and half black. The woman's martial prowess was beyond imagination. Every time she made a hand gesture, warriors would burst apart, turning the scene into a living hell. Seeing her killing their allies as if massacring them, Ho Taegang, the axe-destroying king, and Jia Jiamjong, The expelled monk who had sensed danger from the ominous energy the moment she appeared, simultaneously launched their attacks, thinking this couldn't go on. Popat. The two experts who had unintentionally arrived almost at the same time, unleashed their ultimate techniques towards her, but Patikichang. Papapapapak. Surprisingly, the half-white-haired peerless beauty blocked the attacks of Ho Taegang, an expert of the transformation realm, and Jia Jiamzhong, whose internal energy was almost on par with the transformation realm after cultivating the peerless great ability, with remarkable ease. Not only that, she even managed to break through their techniques and land a strike, forcing them to retreat. Tuar Ruriak. Kudang Tang. Ho Taegang and Jia Jiamzhong, who were pushed back and bounced off to roll on the ground, turned pale. Although they had only exchanged moves for about one technique, they instinctively knew that this peerlessly beautiful woman before them was a monster approaching or equal to the profound realm. Where did such an unheard-of being come from? Cough, cough. That damn succubus is unbelievably strong. They had managed to stand up, but they had suffered internal injuries from just one hit. With the appearance of a supreme expert overwhelming their side's strongest, the morale of the society members around them began to rapidly decline. The half-white-haired peerless beauty, or rather Chunchu of the first realm of the secret society, waved her blood-stained hand towards Mok Jaeun with a seductive smile. I missed you then, but now I get to see you like this. Heavenly demon. Seeing her, Mok Jaeun's eyes narrowed. With all his eye power unleashed, Mok Jaeun could see her dangerous and vast energy, which was closer to demonic power than true chi. At this level, among those present here now, only Mok Jaeun himself could face her alone. Uhu, do you understand now? You cannot defeat me in either force or numbers. By the time you die at my hands, all those who follow you will have become cold corpses as well. Chunchu of the first realm possessed power equal to the supreme masters of the seven heavens, the pinnacle of the current martial arts world. With her appearance and the Jiangshi, the tide of battle had already been reversed. Na Yulriang, or rather Three Eyes, who possessed that body, smiled with satisfaction. However, he's smiling. Even though the situation had changed, Mok Jaeun was smiling. You fool, do you understand the current situation? It's amusing that you think you're the only one fighting a battle of numbers. What? It was at that moment of retort. Three Eyes' eye on the forehead reacted to a strange spell power felt from somewhere, and his gaze turned towards it. It was in front of the main building. There, a cute-looking girl with short hair could be seen standing with a large brush in her hand. Considerable spell power could be felt from the brush, which seemed to be a ritual tool for spell casting. She was Yeo Su-rin, a disciple of the harmonious immortal pavilion master. Open! Mok Jaeun shouted towards her. Then, as if she had been waiting for this, Yeo Su-rin raised her brush and drew a large circular shape. At that moment, a vermilion cloud arose and the space began to ripple. Boom! Along with it, one being and numerous groups of swordsmen emerged from that rippling space. As an extraordinary-looking old man standing at the front revealed himself, the society members nearby exclaimed in shock. Oh, Cheonmu? He was Cheonmu, the supreme spiritual sword craftsman, one of the seven heavens, considered the pinnacle of the current martial arts world and the master of spiritual sword sanctuary.